You're listening to the Rewrite the Rules podcast. We are your hosts. My name is Harriet.
I'm Beth.
And I'm Natalie.
You want to work towards achieving true food and body image freedom, you are in the right place.
Rewrite the Rules podcast is your survival guide to letting go of harmful societal expectations and unlearning any unhelpful beliefs that are stopping you from having a healthy and loving relationship with food and yourself.
Our mission is to help you feel heard, understood, and empower you to step out of the box and rewrite your rules so you can live life on your terms. Thank you for tuning in. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
This is episode 10. We're in double digits now.
Milestone alert. Double digits, yes. As always, we are here and our mission is to keep it raw and real when it comes to spreading awareness about disordered eating and providing ways to help if you are currently struggling. Food freedom is one of those terms that we've noticed has become quite trendy in the wellness world. But what exactly does it mean?
Yes, so if you are looking to find and achieve food freedom, as they say, then a good place to start is actually understanding what it means.
Food freedom means something different to everyone, and we are going to go on and talk about that. But to give you a basic little definition that I found, food freedom is a condition of eliminating all diets, rules, or morality with food and allowing food to be part of your life without controlling it. I think that condenses it quite nicely, doesn't it?
Yes, but of course we are going to go into more detail just so that you can really leave this episode truly understanding what food freedom is and why it is just amazing, why you need it in your life.
Yes, we all need it in our lives.
Absolutely. So we are in this episode going to be providing you guys with the ABC of food freedom. And just to kind of give you a little overview of what the ABC means, A stands for affect, and affect is essentially a psychological term for your mood. B stands for behavior, and C stands for cognition, which is your thoughts. So we just really believe that this is a very digestible way, pardon the pun, of understanding what food freedom actually means when it comes to your mood, your behavior, and your thoughts.
Do you want to start off with A, Harriet?
Yes. So as I said, A stands for affect, which is your mood. And if you are currently struggling with your relationship with food, so let's say that you do not have food freedom, the way that can affect your food is food really having this power to trigger negative and stressful emotions. So guilt, for example, when you eat and then you experience guilt afterwards, if you experience anger afterwards, if you experience anxiety, and it's not just isolated to how you feel after eating. Obviously, it's how you feel before. I obviously work with a lot of clients who feel really anxious even thinking about their next meal. But also, of course, when you don't have food freedom, this can also mean that even like your internal cues can be triggering. So feeling hungry can make you angry, can make you frustrated, can make you anxious. Being full can make you feel guilty. It's when you don't have food freedom, when it comes to your mood, food just really has this power to trigger lots of like really stressful emotions. But when you do have food freedom, really you just start to feel really neutral around food, and you're just able to enjoy food. And yeah, you're able to look forward to it, but generally you're just able to move through your day, through your life, without food being able to put a spanner in the works and without it triggering any emotions. Food is there, you can enjoy it, and then you can move on. So it's really about experiencing this neutral feeling towards it.
Absolutely. I love that. And it's so relatable, especially when you say words like experiencing anger. You could feel anger towards the food, you could feel anger towards yourself, you can feel anger towards other people, like the loved ones in your life. So it's just, when you explain it like that, you realise how having a lack of food freedom actually impacts your day-to-day life.
I was thinking of what I wanted going through recovery and having food freedom. It was really having that neutral feeling. Like, I didn't want to be thinking, I didn't want this intense feeling before I went to eat and having any intense feelings after I ate. I just thought, all I want to do is I want to pick up that food, I want to eat it, I want to enjoy the taste, and I want to move on with my day. And it is really that neutral feeling of just having just a lot more headspace as well.
Yeah, 100%.
So the next part of this framework is B, which stands for behaviour. So I'm doing this one because I claim all the B's, being a Beth. So what does behaviour look like when you don't have food freedom? It can look like you having to eat the exact same thing every single day, having to eat the exact same brands of foods as well, not being able to like waver between what types of food you have, and having to know like exactly what is in your food. So obviously that could impact going out to a restaurant or having someone else make that food for you. You have to make it all yourself, so you know exactly what is in it. Going hand in hand with that is having to also weigh out your food or track every little bit of food. And if you don't make all of your own food, then it's impossible for you to weigh out and like track every little morsel of food. So they sort of go hand in hand together. It's, you know, not being able to cope effectively if you go on holiday or you go to a different location, and getting really frustrated and annoyed if your routine is interrupted. This might be like frustration at other people as well. If they ask you to go out for a spontaneous meal, or, you know, your friend wants to go for a coffee and a brownie with you, you getting frustrated at them for even asking you and daring to interrupt your perfect routine in the first place. I know that's definitely something that I used to feel. So don't feel shame about that. That is completely normal. And yeah, you just getting like frustrated at the people when they do try and like interrupt your routine if you've set yourself out a plan for that day. So to like use an example of like being inflexible from like my personal experience, I've got loads of them. I would get so upset if I had like meticulously weighed out all my food, ready to have my dinner, like I'd planned out every little thing that I was going to eat that day, and I'd calculated it perfectly into like a calorie counting app. So everything was planned, and my partner would try and steal like a spoonful of my meal, and I would get so upset, and I would literally like, I bet you can't imagine me kicking off, but I would kick off and I'd have a meltdown if he'd even try and sneak a spoonful, and I would totally fall out with him. And if he was successful in like having a spoonful, it would normally often like lead to a binge, because I'm like, right, I've lost out on calories there. I've got to make up for the calories somehow. I've got to have exactly what I've planned for that day. And I'd always end up having a little bit too much, and then it'd snowball into a binge. You add the anger and frustration onto that. And like, that's how I'd sort of like behave when my little bit of routine was interrupted. Another like example is my poor boyfriend. I'm like dragging him now. Adam had a thing about adding salt to his pasta water when cooking. And I'd never heard of it before. I'd never done it. But obviously, having this lack of food freedom, salt is often very much feared by a lot of people. And I caught him one day adding salt to this pasta water when I'd sort of allowed him to start making meals for us. The conditions were, you can make meals for us, but you've got to do it my way. You've got to weigh everything out. You've got to tell me everything that's in it. That was me like extending my comfort barrier. And as soon as I caught him putting this salt in the pasta, another meltdown, because it was something that was out of my control. I thought, you know, oh my God, I'm going to gain so much weight from this. The water retention I'm going to wake up with tomorrow. How am I going to add this to my calorie counting apps and whatever? And it was really just like a lot of like disordered thinking. And it only took one little thing for me to go from having an amazing day to the worst day ever. Which obviously like proves how unstable I was at the time. But these are the sort of behaviours that are very much attached to that lack of control. So just like, you're so inflexible, you're so rigid, you aren't able to adapt to any situation. So that's sort of like examples of like what not having food freedom can feel like and look like in a realistic sense. Whereas having food freedom is obviously the complete opposite. So it is like being completely flexible. Wherever you are, whatever food is put on your plate, it doesn't matter how much. Maybe there's a little bit too much pasta, maybe there's not enough, maybe it's a different brand of crisps than you normally eat, or, you know, a different brand of like bagels and stuff. I know a lot of people feel very passionately about their bagels. So, you know, being able to have whatever brand is available in the shop and not feeling like you've got to do 3 food shops to get the exact food that you wanted, because that's like definitely a pressure that I felt. And generally just being like more relaxed around food and being able to be spontaneous. That is such an amazing thing to gain from food freedom. You can have a message being like, do you want to go out for dinner tonight? Do you want to go out for breakfast tomorrow? And having the ability to just say yes without it impacting your day, no negative behaviours coming from it. And like obviously being able to like let other people cook for you. So whether that's a restaurant, whether that's your partner, whether it's, you know, going around your parents for dinner, having food freedom just allows those occasions to come along, be enjoyed, and then the ability to like walk away from it with like a neutral response.
It's so true, because the thing is, it's like life, things and interruptions in life happen. And so if you can't be flexible with food and you find it difficult to adapt to new situations, you're just like, it's just a really hard time, isn't it? The struggle is really real. And, you know, it's even like simple things. If you order a coffee and they give you a coffee with full fat milk instead of semi-skimmed, or what they don't have semi or skimmed milk and they only have semi-skimmed. And I know that's something I've had to work through with clients actually quite a lot, you know, going to a cafe and then being like, sorry, we only have full fat milk. I remember when I worked at a cafe back in the day, we only had full fat milk. And so even when people asked for a skinny latte, we had to say, sorry, we only have 1 milk. And I know that can really throw people off. And it's a coffee, but it can be really triggering if you're unable to adapt to these situations, to change essentially.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. I completely know that feeling as well. I don't know, just Beth, when you were just explaining about you and your boyfriend and when like you just flip out on him, and it's like, I think the way in which we have began to feel around food and the way it changes our behaviour, it isn't nice, because it makes you act in a way that you really feel like it isn't you. Like, and I know that really was my experience. I was like, this isn't me on a day-to-day. Like, no one would probably stand there and explain me as this really snappy, aggressive,
uptight
person. I would want people to think I'm quite positive, you know, I'm upbeat, I have my times, but like literally it completely changes your behaviour. And I think it's when you're starting your recovery, it's knowing that, look, there are so many of your behaviours that are going to change, but you don't have to change all of them at once. Like, focus on one thing and focusing on maybe just one challenge at a time, as we always say, with maybe you wanting to be a little bit more flexible. Because I know as well, for me, the hardest thing was going to other people's or letting other people cook for me. That was my biggest one, and that was my biggest challenge. And for me, I had to kind of push that to the end of my challenges, because I was like, I'm going to face that like sort of further down the line. But then when you see how your behaviour starts to change, and it's almost like you're regaining yourself again, you're regaining you.
And so I think even just like off the bat, in terms of giving you guys some practical advice, like practice switching up what you eat. Practice like switching up brands, measurements, what you eat, because that is going to help you know that you can cope with changes.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Sorry for interrupting the episode, but we just want to give a very quick shout out to our sponsors, us.
If you're loving this episode and the podcast so far and want to support this podcast further, then head to the link in the show notes and show your appreciation by donating us a coffee. We'd massively appreciate it.
There are also other ways to support us for free, like dropping us a rating and review on whatever platform you're currently listening to us on. If you're watching us on YouTube, then please like and subscribe.
And you can, of course, follow us on Instagram. It's at Rewrite the Rules Pod, and share our podcast with anyone that you think will love it.
We do all offer our own coaching and therapy packages if you would like to work with any of us. All links to those and more info are all once again in the show notes.
Now let's get back to the podcast.
So shall I move on to the last one?
Yes.
Lovely. So we have C, which is cognition. So cognition obviously equals your thoughts. Not having food freedom with our thoughts means, you know, we can obsess about the next meal, and it can be us always thinking about food, thinking about the last meal that you've had, and having extremely negative thoughts around food, you know, thinking that food is bad. And also it can be always thinking about what other people are eating. And for me, all my thoughts around food, around my time in which I was really struggling, I had this constant thought of, what am I going to eat? What am I going to have? When am I going to have it? It could be I've eaten something and immediately my thoughts are, how many hours until my next meal? I'm literally counting down the hours, or I'm calculating it in my head. I'm dreading how long I have to wait for whenever I'm going to eat next. And it was also the feeling of severe guilt if I even steered away from my norm of eating. So, you know, if I was in a situation where I wasn't at home, I wasn't in control, and there was nothing else on offer, and my only way to eat was to eat that said food, it didn't even have to be quote unquote something that I deemed at that time to be bad food. I would just immediately feel guilt because it wasn't something that I allowed myself. And also eating out, eating out was just such a no-go for me for such a long time because of the feeling of guilt, because I felt that I wasn't eating at my normal times. And then I knew inevitably that would lead to a binge, because it was all or nothing. You know, if I did anything that was out of what I normally did, it was like written off. The whole day was written off. And it was the thoughts of fear when other people were cooking for me, because like you say, I was giving someone else control. I didn't know what they were putting in my food. I didn't know what oils they were using. So even when I did let people cook for me, all I had was these thoughts running around in my head, to the point of I was literally, I want to go home. I want to go home. Like, I'm not being able to be present in this situation because of the millions of thoughts that are running through my head, not being able to let me enjoy this situation. So yeah, that's kind of my experience of my thoughts around food, with not having food freedom. But having food freedom, which is always the light at the end of the tunnel, is again, having these neutral thoughts. It's just seeing food for what it is, which is food. It's just something that you want to eat. It doesn't have to have a certain purpose. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to eat this because I know this is going to give me energy and I should eat this. It's just like, I really fancy that today, and that's completely okay. It's being able to reason with food. You know, maybe if you do have a moment of overeating on a day, you know, feel a bit emotional, or you might have had a bad day and you just want to eat a little bit more, and it's not punishing yourself for that, because we do overeat and we do have times of eating more, and that doesn't mean that you're abnormal. I think we need to normalise those times, because I know, I don't know girls if you feel that way. When you were going through recovery, it was such a hard thing to distinguish overeating and binging.
I just equated overeating to binge eating. I just thought they were both the same thing. If I had a little bit extra than I should have done, right, I've binged, or I'm too far gone, I might as well keep going. So it's so important that we stress that to people. The amount of times I've said that to clients, to be like, it's okay to overeat. Like, that is a normal part of being a human. And they're always really like fearful of turning to food to like cope with their emotions. And it's not saying never turn to food when you're feeling a little bit crappy. It's just, food is like a tool that we can sometimes use to give ourselves a little boost, but it's about having other tools in that tool belt to deal with your emotions, and not like solely being reliant on food constantly. And it's just so important to remember, because like, that's something that I didn't realize. I thought, you know, if I'm overeating or I'm sometimes emotional eating, I've failed my recovery journey and I'm just like reverting back to old behaviors. And it's not, it's just part of like being a normal human being.
Using food as a coping mechanism is absolutely fine. But it's if it's making you just so distressed afterwards, then it's like, I don't think like the using the food is the problem. It's how you're thinking about it.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I think that's like really important because it comes up so much. Like, oh, I had a bad day and I had a pizza. That means I'm a bad person. And it's like, no, you're not. That's absolutely fine. I do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, especially when starting recovery, all people want and all I ever wanted was to be like a normal person. And I know, like, the definition of like a normal person, what is normal? No one knows. But all I wanted to do was just like eat in a way that didn't make me feel guilty and awful inside, and just to like find that freedom. So I just hope people listening to this feel like a little bit more confident in their journeys.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously with the ABC framework, the A and the B and the C, they all interact with each other. So, you know, your mood will affect your behavior, and then your behavior affects your thoughts, and vice versa. So when understanding this framework, just know that there is that interaction, and they do, of course, overlap. So you don't need to
everything
just
goes hand in hand.
Yeah, so you don't need to see it as like separate categories. They all have a relationship with each other. But yes, of course, like Beth, what you just said, like what is normal eating, what is food freedom in terms of like how does it relate to you as an individual? It's going to depend, right? This is like a generalized framework, but it's important to know that there isn't one general consensus of what having food freedom or what eating normally means. We thought we'd go around and tell you guys what food freedom means to us individually, and then maybe after this episode you can reflect on what it means to you.
Yeah, definitely. So shall I say what food freedom means to me?
Yeah.
So food freedom for me summed up, it was obviously my main goal throughout my recovery, and for me it was finding a place of peace with food, and that means to me eating what I truly want, not what I feel I should have due to my restrictions or any diet that I was on. It was honouring what my body and my mind wants, and that means I can eat what I want, when I want, with no calculations beforehand of how many calories were in it, or feeling guilty before or after eating it, or cutting anything out afterwards because I've had that certain food. And it, for me, really was, I wanted to have spontaneity and I wanted flexibility. That was what food freedom was to me. And it takes so many turns, and the journey has changed for me, but I think it's really difficult because I so had in my head that I just wanted to eat like how I ate when I was younger. I never used to think about food. I did not know what was in it. Like, I just picked something up and I ate it. And I can honestly say that, like, there was no other thought that ran through my head than, okay, I'm done now. I'm done. And I always had such high expectations that I wanted to get to that point. And I'm going to be honest, I think it's very, very difficult to find that again, find that absolute just, what's the word? It was just such an ease with food because I am educated about food. And once you have that education and once you've been through what you've been through, it's going to take a very, very long time to undo those things. But my place of food freedom is everything in which I've just said, which for me is like a miracle.
I love that.
That was lovely.
Yeah. Food freedom to me is being able to look at food for what it is and understand it from, you know, multiple aspects. So I think it's better placed at the end of a recovery journey, but understanding what food means, like from like a nutritional point of view. I remember for ages I was like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to know. Like, obviously you know some facts about food, but I just didn't want to have any rules when it came to food. But now I'm able to understand, like, you know, what food can help my energy levels, what foods can help stabilize my blood sugars and all of that. And I find that just like really interesting and really empowering. But at the same time, I can also look at food as something that it can be enjoyed regardless of what it is. So it's, for me, that really is this balance that I can like strive to eat well, in a sense of eating in a way that makes me feel good. But then I can also go to Italy for a week and eat pasta every single day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and be absolutely fine with that. I wanted to share this. There is this creator on TikTok, and her account name is Diets Debunked. And I really recommend you all go check her out because she is a dietitian and she just does the most amazing videos explaining nutritional facts. And she just says it all in a really digestible way. And I've just been loving her TikToks and I'm literally like making notes.
I love it.
Bit of a fangirl, but making notes because it's just so interesting. And yesterday I watched one of her TikToks and it was about stabilizing blood sugars. I was like, wow, like I love that I'm able to absorb this information, but not see it as a rule or a trigger. Like I'm not scared of my blood sugars rocketing and crashing. But having that information, I just find it really interesting and I think I can take advantage of it, but it doesn't have to be triggering.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think you're only able to take advantage of that now because you are so in tune with your body that you can like feel when your body is lacking that energy, or when, you know, you can feel when your body's lacking hydration and things like that, feelings that you would never have had at the start of your recovery.
Yeah. And it's literally for me as I was just like eating in a way that makes me feel good physically and psychologically. Psychologically, I just did not feel good restricting spaghetti because I love spaghetti. I love pasta, could eat it every day. But also I know that physically, if I were to eat spaghetti every single day the rest of my life, I'd probably feel like I couldn't get up.
Yeah, I feel like lethargic and you feel tired because we all know what it's like when, you know, I've done it. And I think in the beginning of recovery, you are at this like loss as, oh, should I just eat all these said foods just all the time? And it's like when you actually do it, you see that, okay, it makes me it just makes me sleepy, it makes me lethargic, it makes me feel like I haven't got any energy. So completely get that.
Yeah, but you have to be in the right frame of mind to absorb this information, because I think for me anyway, you know, a few years ago, if I were to learn this information, I'd start demonizing food. Oh no, white carbs must be bad. I can't have them. That's bad. But now I just have that balanced outlook. I can see it as what it is, as nutrition, but also for enjoyment, and neither are triggering. So I hope that makes sense, because I know that's not really spoken about that much. How can someone who struggles with disordered eating absorb nutritional facts about food? But I think for me, that is really having food freedom, is kind of understanding food from all aspects.
Definitely. And I think a lot of that comes with like trial and error as well. Like, you know, some people might be able to eat like 3 donuts for breakfast and feel phenomenal. But if I tried to do that, and I've done it before, because I'm like, right, I'm on this path of food freedom, I can eat what I want. I have 3 donuts for breakfast and then I feel crap after, and I get like an eczema flare up. So you have to do this like trial and error for yourself. When you get to the stage where you're a little bit more in tune with your body, you can like identify how you're feeling mentally, but also physically as well. That's when you can start going down this path of like not changing your eating behaviors, but just adding to it. Like, we never want to take anything away. It's always just adding more beneficial things to what you've already got.
Yeah, 100%.
So for me, food freedom is literally just eating what I want when I want, and being able to like view all food as neutrally, just reaching the balance of, like you said, Harriet, like prioritizing both the foods I enjoy and the foods that will fuel me. I've always said I will never eat anything that I don't like. I'm just never going to do that to myself again. But it's just finding like a mental place of calm. So after I've consumed all this food in a day, I'm just left feeling calm by the evening and satisfied and like content. This doesn't happen overnight. It's like a process. It has like many levels and looks so different on every person. So that's why I think it's important that we all share our stories, because we're all different as well. But for me, it's just like having the ability to make a choice about food without rules, and then without dictating how I feel about myself as well. So I no longer feel shame for feeling shame for eating some foods and then feeling superior for eating others as well. Being able to look at something like an egg or a piece of bread and no longer seeing it as a number is a place that I did not think I was ever going to get to. I just, especially at the start of my recovery, I was picking things up and I was like, I know exactly what's in that. I know exactly what's in that. And now I don't. And I just didn't think that that was a place that was possible. So I'm just like overjoyed to be able to share that I just, you know, pick up a cereal bar and I eat it and no numbers even like enter my brain anymore. And then just, you know, things like being able to go out for spontaneous meals in the week and it just have no impact on my day or my week. And, you know, being able to go on holiday and enjoy an all-inclusive, but not make it like a 7-day binge. Little things like that are just like what food freedom is all about for me.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. It's like, essentially, it's like just making it matter less.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I ate a donut, cool, it tasted good. Or even like, I also think with like overeating, like, you know, I love food. So yes, I do overeat sometimes. I feel really full afterwards and really bloated, but I'm like, okay, I feel uncomfortable, but it doesn't have to be the end of the world anymore. It doesn't have to ruin my day. It's like, this will pass. Yeah, I'm uncomfortable. I'm bloated, you know, whoops. But that's it. That's all it has to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
Oh, loved hearing your definition of food freedom as well. I love that because it is so different for everyone. It is. So, you know, like you said, we're not defining that like your food freedom has to be exactly the same as ours, because we've just gone to show that it can be so different for each of us.
Absolutely. So yeah, we really recommend you, after this episode, like grab a notebook and just start defining what you feel food freedom means to you right now. And like that can change as your journey progresses, but just define what at the moment, what does it mean to you? What do you want from food freedom? And I think that's really important, because as we said at the beginning of the episode, if you're trying to achieve food freedom but you're not really sure what it is or what it means to you, then you might struggle.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Well, amazing. I love this episode.
Me
It's so much fun.
Really loved it.
Yeah, and we hope that you loved it too. If you did, let us know. And if you want to share your reflections with us in terms of what food freedom means to you, you can always DM us. We would love to hear. But otherwise, make sure you tune in to our next episode, which will be episode 11. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
Yes. See you next time on episode 11, guys.
Yeah.
See you later, guys.
See you later.
Bye.